Margaret Clitheroe was crushed to death in the city of York for her religious beliefs. She was blindfolded, stripped, bound, and laid on sharp rocks. The door from her own house was laid on top of her. Heavy weights were added to the door that broke her ribs and caused them to burst forth of the skin until she died. It took about 15 minutes. But who was Margaret Clitheroe, and how did she find herself on the wrong side of the law? Margaret was born in 1556 as Margaret Middleton. Her father was well respected as he was the Sheriff of York and was also a church warden for St. Martin's in Coney Street. She followed Protestantism from 1558 when Elizabeth became Queen. She observed the state religion as a child. When she became of age, Margaret married prosperous shambles butcher John Clitheroe at the age of 15. Following her marriage to John, Margaret moved to the shambles in York, where she helped her husband with his business. However, in the early 1570s she appeared to have been converted to Catholicism by the wife of prominent York Catholic, Dr. Thomas Vavasor. As a recusant, she refused to attend parish church services, considering them to be heretically Protestant. Non-attendance was illegal and punishable by death. This made Margaret's home life complicated, as her husband was responsible for reporting Roman Catholic worshippers to the Protestant authorities. Unfortunately, Margaret's was reported and her name was added to the list. Margaret and several other Catholic women were found guilty of non-attendance of church and they were sent to York Castle prison. She was to be imprisoned twice more at York Castle, with her final incarceration lasting for just short of 2 years. It was whilst in prison Margaret learned to read and speak Latin, a key element of the Catholic faith. By this time, Margaret's stepfather Henry May was one of 13 aldermen of York. Although still a Protestant loyalist, he may have been influenced by his wife to protect her daughter, for Margaret stayed out of prison for 3 years. In 1585, Jane May died. Henry remarried. At the beginning of March 1586, he was elected Lord Mayor. There was only one problem: what should he do with his Catholic stepdaughter? By now, Margaret had moved beyond recusancy. She had succeeded in creating a secret hiding room in her shambles home. This was used for priests to hide in, and also mass was held in these hidden holes. These holes were frequently called priest holes. However, she failed to keep it secret, resulting in a frightened young boy revealing its location to the authorities when they raided her home in March 1586. Margaret was subsequently arrested for harboring priests, something which had been made a criminal offence and punishable by death in an Act of Parliament of 1581. Margaret's trial took place in the Guildhall, but her refusal to be tried by a jury led to her automatically being sentenced to death. In a desperate attempt to persuade her to conform to trial by jury, the judges stressed the horrific barbarity of the assigned means of death for Margaret's offence, being pressed to death. Yet, Margaret remained firm in her convictions and continued to refuse trial by jury, stating, "I know of no offence whereof I should confess myself guilty. Having made no offence, I need no trial." Some have even claimed that her refusal stemmed from her unwillingness to include others in the trial, as her friends and family would need to be questioned alongside her. Whatever the cause of her insistence, she was taken to the Tolbooth on Ouse Bridge on the 25th of March 1586. There was one last opportunity to save her. When the sheriffs ordered their men to place heavy weights onto Margaret's body, they refused. However, the sheriffs rounded up beggars and forced them to do the deed instead. They pressed under 7 or 8 hundredweight until she died roughly 15 minutes later. Father Mush reports, after this they laid weight upon her, which when she first felt, she cried, "Jesu! Jesu! Jesu! Have mercy upon me," which were the last words she was heard to speak. Margaret Clitheroe was made a saint in 1970. Her story is quite remarkable.